Hey guys, my name's Orthodox. Welcome back to the channel. We're doing part 2 of the water tier list. So if you guys haven't seen part 1, go ahead. The link will be in the description below. Go ahead and check that out first to see the current units that have been placed and our thoughts. But today I have two guests with me. I have Ricardt and I have Straitlace. Guys, if you'd like to introduce yourself, we'll start with Ricardt.
Hey, what's up? I'm Ricardt. I write scripts for logs sometimes, and yeah.
Alright, and Lace, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well.
So, I am Straitlace. I have my own YouTube channel. I do funny character spotlight videos. I do analysis sometimes, and also musical stuff.
Yeah, so guys, definitely check both of them out. Lace got some great content on his channel, so I'll have a link in the description for their YouTubes, Twitters, and other account information that they would like you to see. That, of course, in the description below. Guys, if you'd like to get started on the tier list, before we do make any changes or talk about any characters, definitely would like to go over then kind of our thoughts about what this tier list represents. So kind of off camera we were talking about how this is the definitive tier list for the public meta of Ayaha and Otaha's Wrath. And so additionally we added here kind of our description and our definition of each of the tiers. So starting from top to bottom, we built out our S+ tier as universally the best. Our thoughts here would be this would house one or two of the element's best characters, essentially a character you would want to see in each of your pub rooms. Going to S tier, we have the best units in the element, kind of having the strongest features or characters you'd be fishing for to flesh out your team composition. A+ units being very strong picks overall, definitely characters you wouldn't complain about seeing. A, strong, but necessarily missing something, like for example in Hunter Cerese's case, not having an affliction. B+ has a merit where some pub rooms are going to be fishing for this. That would be like your healers, for example. Not every room's going to be fishing for a healer, but if they are, then of course they'll be valuable. Our B tier is going to be any characters that are off meta. Maybe it's a character someone was fishing for Eugene or Summer Celliera, and they ended up seeing Xander. That can happen. And then, of course, we have B- is our valuable for chain co-abilities or shared skills, pardon me. And then, kind of down from below, C is if you don't have a character and you're looking for alternatives to run, and then D is simply characters you wouldn't want to build for this kind of content. So, yeah. Anything else then? Any other thoughts on the tier list that you guys want to share before we move on to looking at the specific characters?
Nice. No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Not particularly.
Right. So, that being said, the last thing then when we're going to be addressing characters is going to be how they're played in the meta for the public rooms of Ayaha and Otaha's Wrath, their backline potential, and then their shared skills. So I thought then we'd start by addressing kind of the spirals that have been added to the list. So definitely the elephant in the room is going to be Lily. We had placed her at D tier initially because she was pretty awful.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So let's start by looking at how we place the character now. I personally am going to go ahead and say that she is now A+. I'm going to have her placed between Tiki and Fjorm, but I also want to know what your guys' thoughts are. So, Lace, if you want to get started, where would you have Lily placed?
So, I agree with the A+ tier. She's, with her spiral, basically this gives her access to Frostbite and increases her chance of freeze, as well as fixing a glaring issue with her skill 2, which was its range. You would have to get on top of the enemy, which, while not the worst thing, playing a ranged unit, you typically want to keep range. It also powers up her basic attacks and basically just pulls her damage up in general. But of course, the big thing with her is her skill 1 and its access to a 200% chance freeze, which means if there is a chance to freeze, if they're not fully resistant, you will inflict freeze. So the question here then becomes, is she better than Fjorm? And while she is better than Fjorm, Fjorm can still fill that slot, just not quite as well as Lily with the Frostbite and Freeze.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You know, having a guaranteed freeze in the public rooms is quite a big deal, especially when a lot of Ayaha and Otaha's moveset uh, being cancelled by freeze will increase the survivability, which we all agree is kind of the biggest thing for public rooms, right? That ends run is, you know, one of your teammates dying to a strong move or a difficult action element to encounter. Larart, where are your thoughts on how Lily places on the tier list?
Yeah, I agree. Now that she got her spiral, she has okay damage. The affliction, the freeze is guaranteed freeze is nice. Having that as a shared skill is also good. I because of her superior DPS, I think it's the main reason she's better than Fjorm, because for the most part, you're getting the freeze anyways on the important stuff with Fjorm. But due to her superior damage, I think she's a little better than Fjorm. The only reason and that's the only reason I'm putting her at A+. But yeah, Fjorm is still good. It's just Lily does her job a bit better.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that this placement will lower Fjorm's value in any which way.
Yeah.
But it definitely has merit. Obviously, then we can kind of rotate to looking at Lily's backline. So
Yeah.
Lily's the Wand co-ability, which has some good value. Her Chain co-ability is to be desired differently. I mean, Elemental Res, we all agree, is
Trash.
it's not the greatest.
Yeah.
You know, it does have a little bit more survivability, but it's just not a whole lot. So any thoughts that you guys have on the co-abilities here? I'll start actually back to you, Larart. We can bounce back.
I think, I don't know. I don't like her chain collab. If you wanna like build a wand just for just for backline, Lily's definitely not the one. That we have Summer Estelle for buff time. So like we have a 4-star that is just better than Lily for backline. So yeah, for her backline is solid mostly because of the wand collab. Otherwise, there's no reason to build her
Yeah, yeah.
for backline.
Lace, any other thoughts you have about Lily's backline potential?
Yeah, looking at her backline, how she plays, and how you can use her as a backline, when competing with Summer Estelle does have a better chain co-ability, but on the other side, you can still play Lily, who's going to be dealing much more damage, even though Summer Estelle is still an okay unit. And additionally, she has both an offensive co-ability and a defensive chain co-ability, as opposed to Fjorm, who is her competition for utility, who has a defensive co-ability but an offensive chain co-ability. So, as far as backline goes, she's not the worst option because she can still be used as a frontline unit. But if you're just building a wand for backline, then Summer Estelle is going to be a better option.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So, all in all, you know, playing Lily, it looks like our general consensus is that she's a strong, playable character. But then, of course, her backline is kind of left to be desired, something that other characters that could be cheaper to invest in can do better. My closing thought on her is that I'm pretty stoked to see a 200% freeze affliction skill, especially shareable on her skill 1. Something I kind of wanted to mention as well is when I had made the High Jupiter solo mini guide, I had talked about shared skills being an option that players could bring if they didn't have access to Hawk. And since Hawk's coin flip stun from his empowered 4-strike through skill 2, it was only 60%. So a lot of cases, if you had a few bad runs, you'd have to keep resetting the run, restarting the run, kind of fishing for that RNG stun. Lily's the first character we now have that has the ability to guarantee the CC, you know, stop the blast, get things started, and that actually allows us to enter a situation where it's 4 shadow units, which definitively is the strongest element. So, I don't know. I guess in short, her shared skill has quite a lot of utility that can be used on other units. allowing people may want to simply just bring her to 56 just to get that CC on any other unit, really. That's kind of my thoughts on it. I definitely have a affinity or interest in guaranteed CC in my public lobbies.
Mhm.
So, yeah, Lace, any other closing thoughts then on Lily?
Yeah, another thing I've heard is that when running Lily, her skill 1, because of its long cast time, is actually unoptimal to use for DPS. So if she's just using her skill 2 all the time, another thing you're going to have is her skill 1 is basically always going to be up in case you need to freeze. So unlike Fjorm, who actually pulls a bunch of DPS from her skill 1 and keeps using it, Lily will basically always have that utility ready.
That's a great point, yeah. And then, of course, then she can relegate herself to being an auto-attack monster with those new icicles. I think the other thing then to mention is her augmented auto-attacks, having that pierce damage, kind of like Hunter Cerise's 4 strikes, where they go through enemies, has some decent value then to be able to hit both the twins. Ricardt, any other thoughts then on Lily's kit?
Yeah, just wanted to talk about the piercing
Okay, yeah.
basic attack, which is like it has some decent value, but because phase 1 nowadays, from my experience, is going so fast, like we get to phase 2 so fast, doesn't make a lot of difference. I'm seeing like a lot of Karina's, Mitsubas, and Valero comps. Not those characters together, but like comps with one of those characters.
Right, absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely.
Yeah, getting to phase 2 so quickly that I don't feel like the piercing makes a lot of difference.
Right, right. And
It's still good, like it's still solid, but
It's like a nice
phase
little
2,
extra.
yeah. It's more than an extra than anything. Actually.
Yeah, it's novelty. I mean, she's essentially the first wand to have I want to say first wand to have a unique auto, if I'm not mistaken. Especially
Mega
with it
Man.
being. Oh well, true. I guess if you count Mega Man, yes, Mega Man. That's a good point. Then yeah, in the water element, right? I mean, having Frostbite Punisher as well is good value, and which also brings another point. That Lily would have to rely on another Frostbite setter on the team, really.
Yeah.
Since her only way to set Frostbite is through skill 1. But yeah, I really do like in general how Frostbite has such a long duration. I think most of the characters that have the ability to set Frostbite is around 20 to 25 seconds. So it does have some good value. Yeah. All right. So everyone, you guys are then happy with the placement of Lily being A+?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it looks like then she'll fall somewhere between Fjorm and Tiki. All right. Yeah. That being said, let's move on. Let's talk about the next spiral on the list. Is going to be Xander. So right now we have Xander at B, and that was when a time that he did not have his spiral. Now he does, and it's interesting. I personally am going to say that it was not as good as Lily's, but this is tough. I really wanted to place him higher, but I'm thinking that I'm probably going to be placing him at A. It's probably going to be a controversial pick. You know, Xander's a very popular character. Before I get into my reasons of why, though, I'd just like to see then where you guys have placed it. Ricardt, if you want to let me know, where did you place Xander and his spiral?
Yeah, I would put either top of A or bottom of A+, because yeah, that's my place.
Okay, and then Lace?
Yeah, I kind of agree with A. So the question is, what did he get from his spiral to move him out of B? So the big things that he got were slightly more damage, because of course he's going to be level 100 now, so his stats are going to be better. His 4-strike passive is improved. And then, of course, his skill 2 now also, like his skill 1, stacks more damage off of having more buffs. But the other big thing he got was his new ability and buff, Born Ruler, which unfortunately, in the way it works, gets dispelled every time he uses a 4-strike. which
Right.
means as soon as he gets it, he's basically going to be dispelling it or not using his 4-strike, which is a huge DPS loss on it.
Right.
So it's not really something to consider yet unless it gets changed in the future. So the big thing is his increased damage from his stat boosts and his skill 2 dealing more damage.
Right. Yeah, and this part was kind of frustrating for me. Generically, the combo that you use for swords, right, is the C2 4-strike, or the 2C 4-strike, right? And so Xander, because of the way that they have designed his kit, is now based around more standard attacks, building his S1, finally building into one powerful 4-strike way down the road, probably after your, second? Is it second or third skill
Third.
one to finish it? Third, right?
Yeah.
So it feels weird to have taken a 4-strike centric kit and then essentially punished you from doing 2C 4-strike.
But building the 4-strike is a DPS loss.
Right. So now you're in a position where,
Doesn't feel right.
Right. It seems the kit now seems counterintuitive. The benefits of his kit, the bonus of his kit, right, is frostbite.
Yeah,
he is
that's
a
why-
frostbite setter now, which has good value. Laura, what do you think then about his skill 1 changes?
The frostbite is what makes me consider putting him at bottom of A+. It's the only thing, because like the thing is, if you look at the sim, his DPS is nothing impressive, but he gets a lot stronger than everyone with buffs.
Right.
So like even like water has so many buff bots or different kinds of buffs from so many different characters. Like we have Valero and Mitsuba giving inspiration, crit damage, crit rate. We have a lot of characters giving strength buffs. We have heals. We have defense buffs. So he's actually like pretty strong. So he has this like strong DPS and frostbite, which is the reason I would put him at A+. But given his kit is kind of weird, and I feel like it's, even though like his kit is good, there are so many better characters than him that
Right.
but I would still put him in bottom of A because of how his chaos with buffs. His skill 1 getting frostbite is nice. We have some frostbite setters in water, but not that many right now. Now we have a lot. With the spiders, we have a good amount of frostbite setters, but so yeah, I think
Right.
I would put him at A+ because of how his chaos with buffs.
I think it's tough though, right? Because as much as him having access to frostbite is valuable, that is a good point. We do have quite a lot of frostbite setters.
Yeah.
So if his main role and his main focus is applying frostbite, to the boss, then he has quite a lot of competition ahead of him.
That's true.
So it isn't necessarily a benefit of his, right, to set that. I mean, yes, he could fill the role for frostbiting, but I don't know necessarily if I would want him to, or if that would be my main draw, to using Xander.
Yeah.
I don't know, something about his kit just feels off. I mean, his DPS is okay. It just feels like it could have been more. I don't know. I guess referencing his ability 3, they went from 4-strike 50% to 4-strike 55%.
Yeah.
That seemed kind of irrelevant.
Left.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't understand why you would keep that 4-strike passive, and make such a small adjustment. I was kind of hoping to see like a Punisher, like a Frostbite Punisher, added to his kit, or maybe that was the charges that would be consumed, right? So he uses his skill 1, and then maybe Born Ruler allows the next 3 4-strikes to be Frostbite Punishers, right? I don't know. Lace, what are your thoughts then on Xander's playstyle and his kit?
There's a couple of things to consider with Xander and the twins. So first of all, Xander's main design is for things like challenge battles. So his first ability with Striker Strength, which is now Born Ruler, isn't really going to see use. Especially even though he gets a 5% strength buff while Born Ruler's in effect, that gets dispelled as soon as he uses a 4-strike. Another thing to consider about Frostbite, like all the other afflictions, is even though the twins have improved weakness to, or improved vulnerability to afflictions, like you can inflict Frostbite and Freeze way more than you can on a normal boss, if your Frostbite gets resisted, you are now losing out on all that damage from his first skill, because from his Spiral, the mods otherwise weren't changed very much. I myself have actually unlocked Xander's shared skill, and it's a really fun shared skill to use because of all the buffs powering it up. But I don't think I myself will be spiraling Xander to 70 MC because Born Ruler does not affect his shared skill, and it increases the SP cost from about 7,600 to about 8,500 for basically no improvement in damage except the Frostbite.
Right.
Which in itself is nice to have, but there are much better shared skills for inflicting Frostbite.
Now, the other interesting thing, and this kind of like plays into Xander's favor, is his backline potential. So, of course, looking at other characters that would like Xander, that's pretty much everybody, if I'm not mistaken. So, just to highlight, Xander's co-ability is Dragon Haste for sword, right? 15% Dragon Haste. And then his chain co-ability here is 10 hits equals 13% strength. So I think we can all agree definitively that's one of the best chain co-abilities that you can have access to. I definitely think that that helps the case for building Xander, at least to 50 nodes, as a majority of the characters that are currently in this lineup that you're seeing value and benefit from that. What are you guys' thoughts then on using Xander as a backline for Ayaha and Otaha? Well, I guess I'll start with Ricardt. Why don't you give it a go?
Yeah, it's one of the best chain collabs we have in Modern. It's the only, I think it's the only one on 5-star that is 10 hits equals strength. I might be wrong, but
we do have Catherine.
Oh yeah, we have
Yes.
Catherine now.
Yeah. At least for chain co-ability, yes. Yeah.
But for offensive capabilities, Dragon Haste is better than HP, especially with the Bunny Dragon.
Yes, that's a very good point.
So yeah, I think his chain collab is one of the best in the element, if not the best.
Yeah, it definitely. Lace, any other thoughts to add for Xander and his chain co-ability?
Yeah, so the question becomes, is it better to have Xander's chain co-ability with the buff of 13% strength, or instead use a strength co-ability from a blade? So the way it works in the damage formula is it's multiplicative between your base strength, the sum of your strength buffs, and then the blade co-ability of strength. So that means the blade co-ability of strength is always on its own and will always be multiplicative with everything else.
Yeah.
So this 13% strength buff actually has diminishing returns if you have more strength buffs coming in from elsewhere, because it's just going to get mixed in with those. And those are all multiplicative with a blade co-ability. But that being said, it's not a bad chain co-ability by any means. It's still very strong. Because 10 hits is also very easy to reach.
You can also run both Blade and Xander.
That's correct, and then the two will be multiplicative.
Yeah, which a lot of characters do like running.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point to bring up too about the damage formula, right? A lot of players, I'm sure, are unfamiliar with how their overall stats are being calculated. Yeah, I mean, I think that really does it for Xander then. I'm not sure if I'm missing anything, so I'll definitely reference you guys on it one more time. Any closing thoughts then that you guys have? Pretty much anyone can chime in here if you guys have something.
I think given his scaling with different buffs, and like he has, even himself can buff with his own chain collab. He does have a nice scaling, with different buffs, and his DPS gets a lot better, which is why I would say he's A plus. But given his flaws as like in his own kit, I can see him being A. But if that's the case, I would put him above Cerise.
Okay, yeah. Lace, what do you think then for his current placement in the tier list?
I think A, strong but missing something, is a good place for him for the twins. The twins isn't really Xander's optimal content. He really wants to be in a challenge battle setting where he can face off against many units and get off some striker strength and then have those buffs power up his skills.
Right.
So in terms of the twins, he's not going to be utilizing that portion of his kit, so he's definitely not going to be the best. That being said, he is still a decent unit because he can still receive buffs from buff bots, and force striking will help break the boss faster.
Okay. Yeah, I think throughout the discussion from what I've heard, I think I'm convinced that I'm able to place Xander over Hunter Cerise. Probably actually place, see if I can move him there, yeah, at the top of A, but I don't think I would necessarily put him into the bottom of A+. I think that's, it's almost the same, but I really want to say that he still feels like he's missing something. His kit isn't necessarily as cohesive as it could be for this fight in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the definitive response, is that Xander, when specifically looking at the twins, feels like he's missing something. So, yeah, all right. Then top of A it is for him. That's where the king will sit for now. We'll have to see. Let's move on then to the next character. Let's talk about Karina. Actually, I definitely have been wanting to talk about Karina. Karina is definitely one of the more interesting picks that I want to say she didn't catch my eye initially, which was silly because of how she's actually turned out. I'm going to say that she's top of S.
Yeah.
I'm going to be hard pressed to see her go anywhere else. So yeah, but kind of before I get into more of my reasoning for it, though, I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. We'll start with Lace on placement. How do you feel, or what do you think about Karina getting placed at S tier?
I think Karina in S tier is definitely about where I would place her. She's definitely at least an A+. So if we look back at Karina before her spiral, she always had a strong kit, but she never really had a place to use it because being stun res meant she didn't really have a place in Hybrid Hilda, and that really left her only other content as maybe challenge battles or raids, and then Imperial Onslaught is where she would really shine, but that's a very short content. So with the advent of the twins, her kit actually gets a little bit better because both resistances are useful, and her survivability and personal DPS are actually something to take into account. I know when shared skills first came out, her shared skill was actually considered one of the better ones because it has very strong mods. Her first skill, like Xander's, scales damage off of the amount of buff she has, and it actually has slightly better mods than Xander's. So the difference in the shared skill is hers has a slightly higher SP cost.
Yeah.
So
Right.
with her spiral, she now has access to Frostbite with her first skill, as well as her second skill now grants her a defense buff. And we're not talking like some little 5% defense buff that lasts for 10 seconds. If I'm not mistaken, she gets a 30% defense buff that lasts for 30 seconds.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of defense. And it triggers her healing double buff, which, if my math isn't wrong, heals her about a third of her HP.
It's 24%.
Wow, that's significant, yeah. Do you guys know the duration then of how long it takes for that healing double buff to finish healing?
I think it's 30 seconds. Let me check.
30
25
seconds.
20 seconds. Yeah, 20 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah. So it does take a while for that regen to kick into place, but in the twins, things like the area-wide purple attack don't happen like really frequently. You have 25 seconds between those to heal up.
Mm-hmm.
as well as if you have a buff bot with a healer, can also be healing you at the same time.
Right.
So
right.
it's much more of a sustainability thing than anything else, because of course other units can get by with a buff bot healing. Karina just happens to have this in her kit, and it lends to her survivability really well.
Absolutely.
On the downside, the twins have a very potent burn, and Karina has stun res.
This is true. Yeah.
So
And it's
The
kind
only
of the problem that all the stun res units will have, right? Is that factor. And of course, we know the burn in Twins is similar to HBH, Hybern Hilda's burn, right? So if she does get afflicted, she drops to 1.
yeah.
Correct.
So that being said, though, kind of something to mention about Karina's kits, and this is something that definitively sets her apart. One, she has frostbite access now, which is a strong start. Obviously, we talked about that with Xander. Having frostbite makes them better. But in Karina's case, there's actually been multiple power farming or cheese farming compositions that she's been able to have a role in. Of course, the 4 Karina cheese is interesting, and the 2 Mitsuba, once again Mitsuba popping in, and 2 Karina cheese as well. Those are strategies that we haven't seen implemented for Xander or for Lily. So that definitely, in my mind, sets Karina apart, especially when you're looking to farm the tree, when you're looking to farm your weapons. Having a character that can definitively sit in a power farming slot and get 30-second to 45-second clears, it's good value for your time. Laranoa, what are your thoughts then? I know you had something to mention too, but what are your thoughts building on Karina's Spiral?
Yeah, so I got Karina's Spiral, and I'm using her a lot.
Okay.
She, one of the things I've felt is the skill prep is one of the main changes that I really did felt. The thing is, if you use Valiant Crown on her, she can get a lot of strength buffs because I'm using Petia's skill, right?
Right.
So every time I use S2, I get 3 different buffs. I get 1 heal, 1 defense buff, and 1 defense buff, 1 heal, and a strength buff. And every time I use Petia's skill, I get 2 strength buffs, 1 healing buff, and a defense buff, right?
Right.
So not only that, but like the skill prep makes me have those buffs right at the start. And the skill charge is only 5%, but it does help. Like, I can get 15 of my shared skills ready right away after I use it. So, from my experience, I'm getting a lot of buffs, and I did some speed runs with Karina, the 4 Karinas,
Okay.
and 2 Mitsubas, and the 2 Mitsuba is really fast, really consistent, and the 4 Karinas is also consistent, not as fast as the other speed cheese. But
Right.
the thing is, I'm getting the burn rest. Not having a burn rest didn't bother me at all, because not only like it's easy to avoid the burn attacks from the twins, but even if you get hit, a lot of times I got like at 1 HP, right?
Right.
But because every Karina was running Petia's skill, and I myself get a lot of defense buffs, so I would get a lot of healing and a lot of defense.
Right.
By the time that they do the unavoidable, I got a little bit of HP, and like because I had so many defense buffs, I would just tank it, and I wouldn't die. I would take like almost nothing, survive, and get to 1 HP again.
Yeah.
So I am having a really solid experience with her. I'm using her in solo. I got some Brunhilde. I know that's not relevant, but for the discussion, but I did some expert Brunhilde because of her. now that we have shared skills and not shared skills, sorry, we can use Grace on Helper. Even in solo for the twins, I feel like you can easily avoid the 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 unavoidables, and not only the unavoidables, but avoid getting Karina burned if someone uses Grace's helper skill.
This is true. This is true, right?
Yeah. But even if you don't, if you're controlling Karina, not getting burned is not hard. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing not having a burn. I would much rather have burn rest than stun rest, of course, but uh, it's really easy to not get burned, so I don't think that necessarily makes her a little worse. Her damage is really good. She gets so many buffs from S2 and Padia's skill. She has skill prep. She can skill her, charge her skills pretty fast.
Right, right.
And so yeah, I'm loving Karina's Spiral. I think she's one of the best characters for water.
Yeah.
And yeah, I definitely yes. Does a lot of damage. One of the best frostbite inflictors. A lot of buffs, a lot of bulk, and she can heal herself pretty easily. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, especially having with her chain ability, or chain ability is okay. You know, it's a 6% strength. The nice part about that, more so than anything, is that counts as a buff towards her skill 1.
Yeah.
So that part is cool. Additionally, you know, you're right. I mean, the bulk aspect of it, the survivability aspect of it is phenomenal. I mean, if you're looking at like a traditional clearing composition that would have like a supportive healing Gelly, you know, Gala Elisan on the team, you'd have 25% flame res on top of your 15% defense coab, and the 30% defense buff that you'd get from, I think it's Black Flag is the skill name.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. You know, survivability is huge. So if you can have big numbers and have big defense, you know, on your kit with your own healing, you know. Because not to mention, if you're running Halloween Lowen's healing skill, if you're running, you know, Patia skill, you know, so the healing skill, of course, would be on Gala Elisan, right? That's a healing regen. That counts as a buff for Karina. The defense portion would also count as multiple buffs because we're seeing Karina's running Valiant Crown. So they'd get the strength double buff and the healing double buff as well, you know, which is just even more sustained for her. So those things and that value and even just a generic team composition makes Karina an extremely safe pick for any public room outside of just power farming. Just picking her in general, running with her in general, feels good. Yeah, I definitely think so. Now, Lace, you know, what are you thinking about Karina? Have you spiraled her first off, and if not, are you considering spiraling her? Because at this point, I really want to build her. I really do.
I mean, I haven't spiraled her yet. The biggest thing for me is that I don't have her above 45 nodes.
Okay.
So it would be 73,000 Elderwater. And while she is good, one of the biggest problems I have in Dragalia Lost is that I have so many units, I can't play them all. And it's nice that we have the new team slots to do so, but I already have so many other options, I don't know when I would end up playing Karina. The biggest clinching point for me is that she's an Axe, and Axe is hit a bit slow for my taste.
Okay.
So while I agree she is good, I myself will probably not be building her.
And that's personal preference on her playstyle, if correct.
Oh yeah, of course. Like, if you are like a newer player and you're looking for a unit to build purely out of how good they are, Karina is definitely a very good option.
Yep.
Yeah, the cohesiveness of her kit is very solid now with the Spiral. Like, I initially wasn't sure about the skill prep, but as Larart pointed out, like, it allows you to get off several skills early on that can provide buff to power up your first skill. And then the Chain Co ability grants another buff, the healing double buff grants another buff, and then she just has all these buffs going on to power up her first skill, and then both of her skills charge pretty quickly.
Yeah, kind of building on that skill prep idea, it is also skill charge. And having access to Bunny Dragon, you know, Gabe and Creed, means that from the get-go, Karina will always have her skills at 60% of the cost. Yeah, 60% of the cost, because it's 35% fill after the first usage of your skill by the bunny dragons. And Karina gets an extra 5% filled to that, so she'd have 40% of her all 4 skills filled all the time. And it's an axe. I mean, axe.
Sometimes even more, actually, because, for example, right at the start, you have everything charged because you have skill prep.
Oh, this is
So
true.
you use one skill, it's at 35 already because of the money.
Right.
Then you use another skill, goes to 40, and another one, because we have 4 skills, it goes to 45.
Oh, you're right. In that case, then it's the optimal choice or placement of your skills that matters the most.
Yeah.
So which skill you decide to use will effectively charge the other first skill up to 15% additional. Wow.
You can get up to 50%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you
what people are
would want
doing?
to start with the skills with the highest SP costs,
Yeah.
because you would get the most return out of using those skills first.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Like
Which is
Patia.
another reason, like Patia, not only it has like a pretty high SP cost, but it also like buffs, like it buffs the other skill she's going to use.
Right.
And it buffs the whole team.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Like Patia's skill is so like it's good overall, but on Karina it's just so good.
Yeah. That's I mean, if you had 4 Karinas, right, and they all have Patia skill.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. I mean, think about that with the Valiant Crown doubles going on, and I mean.
Yeah. On the Forges, people are using Summer Spelling.
Oh yes,
the
that's
energy-
correct. That's a good
energy
point
buff,
to
yeah.
mention. Yes, right, because
Dude,
Summer
that would
Paladin
still
for the
energize pretty
energized.
quickly.
Yeah.
She can get she get 4 defense buffs from the team, including herself from Patia's skill, and then another one from S2,
Right.
and then you have all those buffs and skill 1 energized.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah. Karina is wild. I'm definitely gonna be building, at least for if not to play. I mean, I personally been really enjoying playing axes.
Yeah.
But even her shared skill, is great. Her S1, the fact that it builds bonuses off of the buffs, that's good stuff. I mean, especially with how much buffing potential Water has access to, along with buff time in their chain co-abilities. I don't think any other element has buff time in their chain co-abilities. Now, not including what's his face? Tobias, right? Because Tobias is co-ability is buff time. But from a chain co-ability perspective, I believe Water, if you guys can correct me or chime in, Water is the only one with buff time.
As far as I'm aware.
Yes. Let me check, just be sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I believe it's Renee, Summer, Estelle, and Sabella all have buff time.
Yes. So, yeah. So I think that does it for Karina in terms of everything that I've wanted to mention. I personally am definitely convinced to keep her at the top of S. I think we're in agreement. Lace, do you feel that she should be a little bit lower, or are you convinced with us at this point of her placement?
She is definitely at least an A+. As far as the top of S, her kit cohesion does speak to her viability, because she's got Frostbite, which can dispel things from the twins. She's got a very strong first skill that is supported by her second skill, her first ability, and her third ability, and her chain co-ability. So her kit has a very high level of cohesion, so that things support each other. And when you see that in a unit, those units typically turn out pretty well.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, all right. Yeah, so that'll wrap up Karina. Definitely an S mana spiral. So guys, if you're looking at building a spiral from the list, at this point, Karina has my recommendation for clearing compositions. All right, so moving on to Nurse Aeleen. Nurse Aeleen, once again, I'm looking to place her at B+ as a healer and serving in the healer role. You will find that some public rooms will be searching for the traditional 3 DPS, 1 healer composition, and of course, Nurse Aeleen does have that merit of being a healer. So I guess then we'll start with Lace's opinion, as I know anecdotally you've been using Nurse Aeleen. So Lace, what do you think about Nurse Aeleen and her placement?
Yeah, so Nurse Aeleen was actually the unit I used for my first clear on the twins. As far as healers go, she's pretty good. As compared to the other water healers, the big ones, Thaniel and John Zaya, she is stun res as opposed to their burn res. And the other big thing she has that they don't is her skill 1 has a regen buff. And it also actually has a skill shift, which can buff the team's defense very briefly and also buff the team's strength. Additionally, the other healers have access to burn cleanse, whereas Nurse Aeleen has access to stun cleanse. And since so many of the units you see above the healers on this tier list are burn res, stun cleanse is actually really useful. Now, on the downside of this, Nurse Aeleen's stun cleanse is proximity based. You have to be standing next to the unit you want to clear the stun from. And the other thing to consider, let's see, looking at the rest of her kit, she has some high SP costs, is the other thing. So you definitely want to be running Howling Meridimus or GNC.
Right,
But she does have skill prep. She gets 75% skill prep, and it does not take very long to get her skills maxed out. The downside is in a fight like the twins, you don't need your skills that quickly, but then her third ability is United Haste, which gives her skill haste depending on the number of team members you have alive, which for an optimal clear should be all of them.
Right. Yeah, definitely good skills and abilities in general in her area, or in her kit at least. Larart, what are you thinking about Nurse Aeleen?
I think Nurse Aeleen is definitely better than Thaniel, because Thaniel, like, he can cleanse burn, but he doesn't heal a lot. So the thing that makes me like Nurse Aeleen as a healer is that she can heal a lot. Like, her regen is really strong, and yeah, I don't think there's a lot to talk, because like healers are pretty simple. They just like heal. In terms of healing, she's like the best, one of the best. Definitely one of the best healers, right there with John Zia. Yeah, pretty simple.
Yeah, I think it's nice that she does have a skill shift in her heal to allow for strength buff as well. So definitely can't complain with the strength buff as well as additional healing. That synergizes and stacks well with other adventurers like Karina when looking at getting buffs. I guess since we're talking about them too, I can always pull up Thaniel. Of course, Thaniel does fit in the role of a healer, so I put him as probably one of the lower options. Kind of before moving to him, though, it's just as a segment, Nurse Aeleen does have Dragon Haste.
That's true.
So Dragon Haste is actually real good as a chain co-ability on her, as you could stack that, allowing you to get more access to, either Halloween Meridimus, or if you wanted, to run the Bunny Dragon, just to give everyone more SP. That skill is extremely valuable, so I will always continually mention it if possible.
One of the things that I find in my runs when I'm running either a healer or no healer is, even though Gaming Crate have more access to skills, Halloween Meridimus has a heal as his dragon skill, and that can be an extra burst heal in case you need it for the whole team.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And of course the zone having, I think it's a buff zone of 30% skill damage?
Yeah, it's a skill damage buff zone.
That also has good properties.
He also provides more HP, so the healings are more. The heals are more potent.
True.
Yeah,
however, GNC is 45% strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing to consider is, in the healing formula, healing scales off of both strength and HP.
Oh,
within the formula, the mod is 0.06 times strength plus 0.16 times HP. So HP is about 3 times as potent towards heals, but strength can still be much more potent, to the point where in Flame, the best dragon for just potency and healing is actually going to be Hybern Helda. because the strength buff combined with a very powerful weapon would make more potent heals than just HP. So GNC is actually not a terrible dragon choice for healing potency.
Yeah.
Interesting consideration.
Especially because you can heal so often with GNC.
Right. Do you guys have any other thoughts then on Nurse Aeleen? I was going to then go ahead and segue into Thaniel, as they are of a similar category. So, anything else, Lace?
Nurse Aeleen she's a pretty solid healer. I did end up 50 noting her, even though I might not use her very much moving forward, just because a buff bot like Gala Elasan can run 2 healing skills as shared skills. But because she has 2 healing skills herself, you can stack on her 4 healing skills and keep people alive. It's really good for practice if you need that. The thing to consider, though, is her second skill is proximity based, and that is the one that removes stun.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
As a shareable skill, I would not recommend it. You should definitely go with Verica's skill if you're looking for a skill that cleanses stun, because it is not proximity based and it has regen.
Right. Yeah, I think the one interesting thing that Thaniel has, right, is the defensive buff on his skill, which of course would have. I know we mentioned earlier, right? Thaniel has a burst heal. He doesn't have any HP regen. But it is interesting to note now that there will be a surge of Karina's in pubs. Thaniel would be able to cover that burn, and of course his defense buff would allow Karina's to access their defense double buff healing. So that kind of has a decent amount of synergy. I could definitely see Thaniel's, still being pretty comfortable with the Karinas, as obviously the Karinas will not get stunned, and then if they do get burned by any manner, Thaniel would still have the ability to help her. That kind of still makes him sit less than Jiangxia, just because of Jiangxia would be able to do the same thing but better. But it is worth mentioning, as I'm sure players have already invested in Thaniel if they're older players, during the HBH meta. So of course, if they haven't been able to access Jiangxia, they could consider Thaniel as an option if they're not looking to invest in Nurse Aeleen.
Looking at the kits, Zhangzai is almost identical to Thaniel.
Right.
The difference being she has skill prep instead of Thaniel's gauge inhibitor, which is not a useful ability to begin with. Her recovery potency ability is a little bit better, and she has regen on her skill 2, which is also a defense buff. What Thaniel has that Zhangzai does not is a chain co ability, 10 hits equal strength.
Oh, yeah.
However,
that's pretty good.
It's a 4-star version of this chain co ability, so Catherine and Xander will be stronger.
Right. So then, then of course, the Dragon Haste or the flat HP, of course, would be more valuable for those that are looking to run that chain co ability in their backline. And I think the shared skill for Thaniel is also a burn relief as well, if I'm not mistaken. So of course that also competes with Jiangxia's as well.
Yeah,
I believe
Thaniel's shared skill costs 1 less than Zhangzai's as far as shared points.
Okay.
And it also has a lower SP cost.
Is it 4 and 5 for it?
It's 5 and 6.
I see. Okay.
That actually brings up another healer. Do you want to talk about Ricardt?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's knock out all our healers all at once. So let me go ahead. If you want to get started talking about him, I just found him here on the list. I'll pull him up. Definitively, though, I'm not quite sure where I want to place him, but I think he's going to go above Thaniel and Nurse Aeleen.
Yeah.
I want to say that he's also probably better than Jiangxia, but I think they make a strong case to fight between the two of them.
I would honestly rank him equal to the others. So the big thing about him is he, with his Spiral, got Burn Cleanse on his skill 1, but he himself is a stun res unit. So it's almost like he has both resistances, but not quite.
Right.
So he can cleanse himself as well as the team of Burn. To the point we were just talking about shared skills, his shared skill actually only costs 4 points as opposed to Thaniel's 5 or Zhangzai's 6. The countermand, however, is that he has a higher SP cost.
Right.
But looking at his kit as a healer, his Spiral took his first ability of full HP equals defense and made it full HP equals defense and recovery potency. which is nice. It's some extra recovery, but it also means that it's a bit counterintuitive that you will only be healing after you've taken damage. So it's good if like another unit gets hit and you have to heal them up, but the main area where it might come in handy is if the twins are about to do the area-wide explosion. You're going to want to be using your skill 2 with its regen right before that, so you get the extra potency after that.
Right, right. The other interesting part to mention about the skill costs, and this kind of goes back to what we were discussing, right, is Patia being a very popular skill share in this water meta is 5 cost. That being said, the free version, Elisand's cost is 6. So now you're playing a game of, if you want to run Elisand's generically for the extra 5% strength to the team, and it's free, you could get away with either Ricardt or Thaniel. You wouldn't be able to use... was it Zhangxia was 6? Is that, if I'm not mistaken?
6.
Yeah, so Zhangxia's would be 6. Hers would be out of the question entirely. From both Patia and Elisand's options. Now, finalizing that, you wouldn't be able to use Elisand's shared skill with Thaniel. You'd only be able to use Ricardt's if you're doing Burn Cleanse. And I don't think that healers need 4 healing skills. I think that's definitely overkill, and they would really want to be looking for a buffing skill as their 4th skill.
Yeah, that's only really if you're just starting out the fight and you need to learn the fight.
Right.
You want to keep everyone alive and move into the fight as far as you can to see what the boss does. It's really good for day 1 of fights, which is why I played Nurse Aeleen the first day of Twins.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I definitely think it has merit, and then obviously, like we said, when you start to optimize, having a 3rd healing skill that has utility, right, like a burn cleanse or a stun cleanse, I see a ton of value there. And then the final thing would be, buffing your team's overall strength, since, the healers are going to be doing very minimal amounts of damage. You're definitely not bringing a healer to do damage. So
yeah. So it becomes more of a question between who you want to run. So as I mentioned earlier, you can run Galasan with 2 healing skills, or you could run a healer with 2 buffing skills.
Right,
so
right.
It's kind of what you want your base kit to be. Buffers are kind of better at it because they tend to have inherent buff time, which is good for regen shared skills. But it's also important to remember that staffs gain SP faster than the other classes.
That is a good point. Yeah, they definitely, and it's significant too. If you look at like the base healing skills that they normally have, typically, I want to say a healer normal cost is like 10k SP.
Yeah, they have some really high SP costs.
Right.
Looking at the SP gain, so around standard SP gain for a weapon class is going to be around 1,500 per 5-hit combo. Staffs actually are closer to 2,000.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty darn good. So that definitely allows them to access those buffer skills much more often. And in the case of like Patia, for example, using Patia's shared skill, a lot more units, especially Karina, namely, are going to appreciate it, as you can get more of them off. And buff time also benefits the healers as well, since the regen healing will benefit from buff time, along with any other buffs or shared skills you get. Patia, Elisand, Gala Elisand, right? Even Halloween Lowen, if you were running a 3rd healing skill, would benefit. So, Laura, what are your thoughts then on overview on the healers? At least how our placement looks. What are you thinking?
So yeah, Ricardt is good. I don't have a lot to say about healers. I don't play healers, and I usually don't play with healers. So yeah, I have like a rough opinion of them. I mostly agree with you.
Right.
But yeah, I don't have a lot to add. I don't play healers. I don't have a lot of experience with healers.
All right, yeah, no problem. Let's move on then. Yeah, I mean, overall healers, they get the job done, and there are the options for water. So that being said, let's look at a more polarizing character. Let's look at Pipple.
Oh no.
I'm gonna place Pipple here. I'm honestly gonna say top of B+.
Yeah, same.
You know, like Pipple is a character where people are going to be fishing for these Pipple compositions, and they're comfortable. They're not entirely that fast anymore compared to what we have access to now. But once again, they're comfortable. Most notably 3 Pipples and either a healer with defense buffs, or 3 Pipples and a Summer Celliera. I think Summer Celliera is probably a definitive choice for them, as the Bog, and then any other Frostbite shared skills can be given to her. She basically becomes their utility, and then everyone is running some kind of healing double buff.
I'm thinking of now that Karina is like that. I'm thinking Karina 3 People.
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen that, but that's one thing that people should consider, I think.
Right, yeah. So Lace, how do you feel? I mean, about the placement? You know, I definitely think, you know, B+ being some public rooms wanting this. I do see people fishing for Pipple still. So what are your thoughts?
Pipple was never quite as amazing as people made him out to be, but he's still pretty good. He is a buff bot with a defense skill as his first skill. It's also shareable. It's not as amazing as, say, Patia's skill, because that one has been spiraled, but it's still very good, and it has a skill shift. The question is, once Pipple has maxed his own energy, does he want to continue using his skill too? On a team of Pipples, it doesn't make sense, because you're all going to be energized, you don't need any more energy. So it's nice that he can energize the team and add that to the team's damage, and the defense skill is very good for survivability. And then his first ability, standard attack damage, as well as his third ability that increases his own strength and crit rate when he's energized, add to his own personal DPS. Yep. So he's good. He's not astounding, but he's good.
Right. Now, just from hearing you say that, also brought back another point that Ricardt was talking about too. Energizing the whole team. You know, energizing a Karina is great. I mean, especially when Karina's doing S1 with energized.
Yeah. One thing to consider is any amount of stacks of energy count as a single buff.
Ooh, yes. So, do you know, and this would be something to determine as well, if you're energized, does that count as energized plus 5 buffs for each individual stack? Or is it consumed?
That's just one buff.
Yeah. So any amount of energy you have, be it 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, is a single buff.
Okay. And then the 5th stack transforms that into a single energized.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
One thing that I would like to mention about Pipple, right, is as the meta advances, as characters get stronger, breaking damage it's more important. So you see a lot of characters that are good, like Catherine, Crom, and even Eugene. They don't have like a lot of damage, but because of their insane burst damage on break, they have a lot of value. You're seeing like Broken Punisher getting better and better as an ability.
Right.
Because we are doing like just so much damage on break. And what I would like to mention about Pipple is that because he doesn't have burst damage and his damage is like always the same, basically almost the same, I think that hurts him a lot. Like if you look at the sim, it doesn't consider break, but when you take break into consideration, he's a lot lower than a lot of characters. He's not bad, he's just behind everyone, and that's one thing that I think it's a kind of flawed of his idea of the character, how the character should play.
Right.
Is that he doesn't have like burst damage for break, so while everyone is doing a lot of damage on break, Pipple is almost the same. He doesn't make killing the boss on break faster, as opposed to a lot of the characters like just melting the HP bar when you break.
I mean, there's some merit to be considered of standard damage as well, because it's like a case between Crom and Marth. Marth is still really good DPS, and it's DPS over a flat period versus Crom would be a burst damage at 1 point. The question is, how good is a unit at dealing that burst damage at the specific time being break? So that goes into the other units of Catherine and Eugene, who are very good at holding on to their skills until break. Versus Pipple is just one of those units who is just always dealing kind of flat damage, as opposed to focusing it all into 1 point.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the other good thing to mention about Pipple, at least his co-ability is, well, lackluster on himself, as he's not doing skill damage, and then his chain co-ability being Dragon Haste. You know, he's not going to be, if he is dragoning, he's not going to be using his dragon skill, which is, you know, unfortunate. You don't want to drop your energy stacks. That's a huge DPS loss then for Pipple, in particular. But on other adventurers, Pipple has, you know, quite a lot of merit then. Skill damage and Dragon Haste, especially on like Zainfried, for example. Very good. Very, very strong. And even on characters like Tiki as well. You know, that's also very good. As, you know, Dragon Haste will affect how fast she builds her bar, and skill damage is always welcome on her, as she has 2 dragon skills to use. Yeah. Lace, what do you think then about backline Pipple?
Yeah, skill damage and Dragon Haste is definitely a good combo. It's better than what Lily has. It can be better or worse than what Summer Estelle has, depending on whether you want Dragon Haste or buff time. As far as his own kit, it's not very cohesive with what he has, which is a little bit to his detriment because he doesn't want to be using damaging skills or he'll lose energy. As far as dragon skills go, there are some dragon skills that don't have attacks. Halloween Meridianus, however, does have a heal, which would also consume energy. So the question is, do you have your skills ready to get that energy back up after you lose dragon form?
Right.
And then, yeah, just Dragon Haste it's decent. It kind of depends on the build, because not a lot of builds are dragon-centric, but the ones that are really enjoy Dragon Haste.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And then finally, his shared skill has quite a high SP cost. I think it's like 16k SP. Gives defense and energy, I believe, to the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up there.
Yeah, you know, if it wasn't such a high cost, I would be more inclined to talking about it or suggesting it. I just don't see, you know, energy as a mechanic isn't enough to warrant such a high cost when you have Patia running around. You know, Patia being almost 3 or 4k less in cost. Of course, 5 shared skill cost being such a nice number. I mean, there's quite a lot of shared skills you can use alongside hers. It's tough to recommend Pipples unless energy gets a rework, as we talked about. You know, if energized was 3 stacks or maybe 4 stacks, something closer, and not 5. 5 seems a little too much for what you're getting. Any you guys have any closing thoughts then on Pipple before we move on?
Like Ricardt said with Broken Punisher, kind of getting better over time, like how it's kind of becoming more of a thing that people are using. I see energy eventually becoming that if the game goes in the right direction, with more units having energy. Because the more units that just apply a single level of energy to the team, the faster you're going to get energy up. So energy is going to take a while with the release of characters before it might actually see some decent use. So as of right now, Pipple is just kind of a middle of the road character.
Right.
And I honestly can only see people like getting worse and worse as time goes on. Because like, I really do think his kit is fun. I guess I personally don't like playing, but I can see how people like it.
Right.
I think it has like a lot of flaws that don't compensate for the his strengths don't compensate his flaws. I think he's not bad, but he's definitely not like good and really good like other characters. And I can only see him getting more and more irrelevant as time goes on.
Yeah, the only thing I could really see people wanting to play Pipple is because he's really, really easy to play. You just basic attack.
Yeah.
And skills when they're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, yeah, let's move on from Pipple. I think Pipple actually makes a good segue for another 5-star with a similar backline to him. Would be Yurius.
Yeah.
And my initial placement for Yurius is going to be probably bottom of A. I do think Yurius is very strong, but I think what he's missing is that he relies on someone to be a frostbite setter. Now, I don't necessarily believe that is in this section of the meta a difficult task to come by, to have someone else set frostbite for him. But his DPS is definitely lower, and not being able to access a dragon form in water seems to be a bit more crippling than the other elements, especially when we have such powerful and potent dragons in this element. Guys, what are you kind of thinking? Lace, what are you thinking about Yurius as a character?
So, I haven't looked too much into Yurius. I've only heard things about him.
Okay.
I understand he's a Dragon Drive unit, and he does have the same co-ability setup as Pipple. But being a 5-star, his Dragon Haste is just a little bit better. So, Dragon Haste does affect Dragon Drive gauge, which is nice. So there's a bit of cohesion in there, especially with the skill damage, and he gets pretty much all of his damage from skills. His skill prep in his kit allows him to get going from the very get-go. And as you said, he does rely heavily on a bunch of other on the rest of the team to inflict frostbite for him. However, I think especially with the new spirals, that is not going to be an issue, because if we look at like the rest of the units above this, we got Mitsuba, Frostbite, Karina, Frostbite, Zainfried, Frostbite, Valerio, Frostbite, and Lazari, Frostbite, Lily, some Frostbite. Like there's all sorts of Frostbite units in the meta now. So I don't think keeping Frostbite uptime is going to be an issue unless you're running more than one Yurius. So yeah. I think he's a solid unit.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And of course, having the access to the similar co-ability as Pipple, but actually 2% more Dragon Haste is kind of nice. So it's the 5-star version of the Dragon Haste chain co-ability there. And then, Laranoa, what thoughts do you have then on Yurius?
So, Yurius has solid damage, and yeah, Dragon Drive is a cool mechanic in my opinion, so that's cool. But like everyone, almost everyone, he has like big break damage, which I really do value nowadays. You see a lot of clears doing like more than 50% of the HP on break, so I do value that highly. But the only thing that is not always a problem, but can be a problem for Yurius, is that as a Dragon Drive character, you can't Dragon Tank, right?
Right.
But the difference between the other Dragon Drive characters is that when they are on Dragon Drive, they get a defense buff or something like that. They get bulkier, right? Like Belina, like Aldred, and kind of like Tiki to some extent. So Yurius doesn't have that. He only gets strength, I think, and skill damage. I don't remember, but he doesn't get bulkier, right? His
right.
bulk
Yeah,
is the same.
he gets skill damage, and his skill gauges increase faster. But there's nothing defensive about his Dragon Drive.
And being a range unit that hurts more, depending on what you're doing, even on twins, this can hurt the character. It's not a major problem, but it is something. I do think it makes him a bit more niche, because for example, a lot of what I see a lot of people do on the 2 lasers with the black hole, a lot of people like just Dragon Tank to stay close to the twins, or maybe on the butterflies. And sometimes it's hard to see where the butterflies are gonna land, or maybe on transformations or the AoE you don't have enough HP to survive. A lot of people just Dragon Tank it, and Yurius not only can take less damage from those things, but he also can't Dragon Tank. So
It's
that
not an
does hurt
option
him.
for him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a major problem. It's like situationally a problem, but it's something I do think hurts him still. He's solid though. He's good. He has good damage, good breaking damage, and yeah, overall good unit, good backline, but nothing special.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate and enjoy his kit. I mean, being a Dragon Drive unit and being one of the few, I mean, Tiki, of course, is the other. She's kind of a pseudo Dragon Drive unit, though, as you know, as she still technically goes into Dragon form. So
Yeah.
I mean, her dragon form is treated like a dragon drive, though. So even though her form changes, the mechanics are still dragon drive. Like increased defense is from her dragon drive, and then her attack changes from her dragon drive. It just changes her form.
Yeah, I think the one thing that lacks with Yurius, right, is the defensive capabilities. I think if they had given him some kind of damage reduction or increased his defensive stats in any way, that would make him a much more viable pick. But I definitely in no way do I think that he's weak. I think he is very strong. I think he's just missing one or two pieces of his kit to really go beyond.
Yeah, I feel like the main things he'd be missing is a little bit of defense. He doesn't need it per se, but it would definitely help with his survivability. And the other thing is, if for any reason he falls out of Dragon Drive, he's going to suffer some losses.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, that pretty much covers him. He doesn't have a shared skill, so there's really nothing to talk about there. I don't think any of the Dragon Drive units actually do.
Yeah.
So at least not to this current.
Dragon Drives don't have shared skills. So far.
Yeah. So that being said, let's go ahead. Let's move on. Yeah. So let's take a look then at Summer Estelle as the next wand here. Summer Estelle's interesting. I think this one in particular, I'm gonna let Lace go. I know that Estelle is probably one of your favorite characters, if not favorite.
Estelle is my favorite 3-star character and one of my top three favorite characters in the game.
Okay, absolutely.
So I was very happy that we got Summer Estelle, and I was kind of mixed that she was a welfare character as opposed to a gacha character, because it meant she might not be as good, but it also meant I didn't have to pull for her and risk all that material and maybe not get her. That being said, she turned out to be a half-decent welfare character.
Yeah, I think what's difficult is that for the majority of players, right, building her is, B- tier. Valuable chain co-ability. Of course, she doesn't have a shared skill as a welfare unit, but her skill 2 being a cleanse for stun is definitely of value, considering it's also a strength buff. I think, I don't know, I mean, like, she definitely has buff time, right, in the co-ability, which is value on top of having skill damage by being a wand. But yeah, I think right now my mental placement of her is B-. But Lace, where would you place Summer Estelle at the moment?
I would place her just a little bit higher. Her buffs aren't as potent as Gala Elasan, for instance, in the Twins, but she does have a little more utility with the stun cleanse, which it's a different type of utility from the flame res that Gala Elasan has, and Summer Estelle is actually my current pick for running the Twins, just because I enjoy playing her, and I run Verika's skill on her for the double stun cleanse. She has inherent buff time in her kit, and with a Wormprint, Antibias's co-ability, and her chain co-ability, she can get just under 70% buff time, which brings a 15-second skill, like her second skill, up to a 25-second skill, which, it's nice. Other buffers that have buff time can do the same as well. One of the big things that holds her back is she only has 50% stun res, and in the Twins, because of one of the attacks they do later in Phase 1, unless you skip it, requires you to have full burn res or full stun res or fall susceptible to one. Her first ability is usually wasted, it's Demi-Human's Bane, but the skill damage co-ability and the buff skill time co-ability, chain co-ability help out a lot as a backliner. So, the other thing in her kit is her first skill. It's not a terribly large amount of damage, but it does have a kind of low SP cost with 2,700, and it can reduce the enemy's defense by 5%. So, all in all, she's alright. She's not amazing, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Laura, what are your thoughts on Summer Estelle?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. I think Lace said like everything I would say about her. She's decent. She's doesn't have like her damage, personal damage is fine. She has some good buffs, I guess. Good, one of the best chain collabs for the element.
Right.
Combined with the skill damage.
Yeah, the Wanko ability.
Yeah. The only thing that like really makes me not like her as much is not having full burn res due to being a
Or in her
welfare.
case, full stun res, right? So I think it's
Yeah,
75% stun res.
Yeah, so you can use Worm Prince to get her up to full res, but again, that eats a Worm Prince slot, which could be used for something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So, like-
it's one of the Dragalia prints that I use. It has like 50% stun res and like 20% skill damage.
Right, because her skill 1 lowers defenses by 5. Is it 40% chance or is it guaranteed?
It's a 40% chance to lower defense by 5% for 10 seconds.
That's not too bad. I mean, additionally, you also have Indelible Summer, and Indelible Summer actually works well with Beach Battle anyway. Being that, you could get yourself up to the 15% cap on Skill Haste, and then Indelible Summer would just cover both stun and burn up to 3 times. Giving her Affliction Guard.
Yeah, okay, so the Worm Print I was thinking of was Saintly Delivery, which has
Yes.
50% stun res and 20% skill
I think
damage.
it's a 4-star print if I'm not mistaken, correct?
It is. I believe it's no longer limited with the
Yeah,
winter event added to the event
right.
compendium.
That's correct, yeah.
So yeah, and the other one you want on her is Beach Battle.
Yeah, right.
Beach Battle is a nice print.
Yeah, Beach Battle definitely has good value. Yeah, if you're looking for a little bit of skill damage, right? I mean, that's probably decent. GNC is most likely her best dragon. I mean, hands down.
Yeah. If you're playing her for utility, Halloween Meridianus does have a nice burst heal,
Right.
but GNC is definitely going to be better for team support.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then from there, I could see a lot of value on having Tiki in your backline and just empowering your auto attacks, as well as the Dragon Haste, because either dragon that you choose is going to have good value when you're shifting.
Mhm.
So, yeah. That being said, I probably actually will move her into off meta just for you, Lace.
Thanks.
I mean,
Great, because she's the one I've been using recently, and yeah.
yeah. I mean, anecdotally speaking, it's working for you, and people are accepting you in the lobby.
I don't play pubs too often, but if I went into pubs, I'm sure I'd find a room.
Right. Assuming that you're, of course, fishing right for the DPS roles.
Yeah, and she has like she's better than those characters you only use for backline.
Right.
Shows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like she still has good utility and support within her kit.
Yeah. I feel like those characters we're putting on B are like only have backline as their strength.
Oh, for B minus.
Yeah, for B minus. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good point. This is a good point. In this case, she actually has playability.
Yeah.
In that regard. So,
Mm.
yeah. Speaking of the 4-star characters with buff time, we also have Renee to talk about. So, she is going to be a case then B minus.
Yeah.
In my opinion, right? Buff time and crit both have good value, and you're going to be seeing this as a choice for Lily. So, of course, Renee for Lily, as well as other characters in the list. Probably Gala Elisan would be a good pick as well.
I've seen Karina use it.
Oh,
for,
yes.
For the cheeses specifically.
Yes, both the axes then would appreciate it. Yeah. So Lace, what do you think then about Renee's placement?
Yeah, I agree. So Renee's kit as a whole is not amazing. She only deals about 650% with her skill 1. It does inflict bog, but at the same time, her personal damage is not that amazing that you wouldn't use something like Summer Celliera instead. So her skill as a shared skill actually has decent potential. It only costs 3, and it has an SP cost of 4,700, which is really low. So she's nice for that, but as a playable character, she has Prime Devastation and Healing double buff for the team, and she just doesn't have a lot of personal DPS as far as things go. So yeah, that's pretty much my verdict. Her co-ability and chain co-ability are definitely the real winners of her kit, so she's a great backliner.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for Renee. I mean, she doesn't really have too much going on. She's probably the weakest of the Smithy sisters. So
Definitely the weakest.
it'd be like that. But, you know, of course, her backline alone is enough to build her because of how much it benefits all the other characters. So kind of going on that same mention, then, we can kind of knock out Summer Ranzal as well. I also believe that he is a B-, valuable for Chainco ability. Maybe not necessarily for playability, but he definitely has the best combination for blades in water.
As of now.
Yeah, as of now, right? The 10% strength and then his Chainco ability being 9% HP is definitely better than the other ones being elemental res. So, any other thoughts you guys have on Ranzal that you'd like to share? Larart, did you want to mention anything?
No, I maybe like he has okay damage.
Yeah.
Not enough to put him at a B, but yeah, he has a good backline, okay, really okay damage, but yeah, nothing to say.
Yeah. Lace, anything you want to mention for Summer Ranzal?
So, looking at the Blade Chainco abilities, HP is still going to be probably the best one, just because 9% is a lot of HP. The other co-abilities it's competing with are Elemental Res, which it's not the same as Defense. It's actually a little more multiplicative with Defense, but it's also much more conditional than HP. So that is going to put Ranzal in the top spot. His kit is nothing special. His personal DPS is pretty lackluster. He again has Bog on his skill 1.
Right.
But it's not even his shareable skill. His shareable skill is his second skill, which does have a nice party buff, but it's also proximity based. And in public rooms, you're not going to be getting that off very often.
Right, right. Yeah, the strength and the healing is nice, but, you know, it is a small area, so proximity is tough to coordinate in a public room. So, yeah, that kind of covers it for Summer Ranzal. Let's go ahead, let's keep moving along. We have another festive alt, this one being Halloween, is going to be Halloween Odetta. You know, with her, she's definitely an interesting character. I'm most likely going to be sitting her at, I want to say, somewhere in A. I'm going to go with bottom of A. For this one in particular, she has good value with the bunny dragon, right? Having the proximity strength, but that once again is her weakness. It's a proximity strength. So it's definitely not on the same level as Eugene or Gelly or even Elisanne in terms of the buff. But of course, it does have good utility, good value. She does have buff timer, I believe, built into her kit too. So what do you guys think? What are your thoughts on Halloween Odetta as a character? Lace, do you want to start?
Sure. So looking at her kit, her first skill only deals about 600% damage, and it's her only attacking skill, so her personal damage isn't too impressive. The DPS sim ranks her really high, but the caveat for that is that she always hits the whole team with her proximity skill, which is very unrealistic. So it is a 20% strength buff for 15 seconds, and she has buff time of 20%. So it is a very nice buff, and it costs only 6,400 SP, which is very nice as well. She has the sword co-ability of Dragon Haste, which is conditional for different builds, but she also has Frostbite equals user strength. This is not useful in her kit because she doesn't inflict Frostbite, so she's probably better as a backliner for that one. And then her other ability is Primed Defense, which is only really good for double buff Warm Prince and other things. So I would personally rank her a tier lower, just because her personal DPS isn't very good, and her team DPS is very conditional.
Okay. Then I think if we're going to rank her lower, because I definitely see your point. I mean, the backline potential, right, for her co-ability essentially being turned off unless she uses a premium shared skill. This would place her in off meta.
Yeah.
Right, I think that's probably a good placement for her. I think she would definitely be ranked higher if it wasn't for Eugene. But Eugene definitely kind of takes her role and just does it better in almost every way.
I mean, Yeah, just about every other buff bot would be better to the fact that they're not proximity based. Eugene is of course proximity based, but his skill is also a skill 1 and is a buff zone that is much larger. So
Yeah.
the difference between a buff zone and a proximity skill is a proximity skill is a burst. So your allies need to be on you when you use the skill.
Right.
Versus a
Buffs
buff
stay
zone you
there.
can use anywhere, your allies can see it and move into it to take advantage of it.
Right, absolutely, yeah. Yeah. I think that covers it for her. Does she, do you guys know, her shared skill is...
It's her
Skill.
proximity strength buff.
It is, correct?
It has a cost of 6 and it has an SP cost of 14,700.
Yeah, he's not good.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, it's really high.
Literally
Yeah.
no reason to use it since we have Alice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Elison's skill's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yikes. Well, you know, assuming she gets a spiral, maybe things will change for her. At the moment, though, her backline potential being Frostbite and Dragon Haste is actually kind of nice, because that's most likely a good position for Tiki. If I could think of a character, right? Tiki would like her. I don't know if that's necessarily better than the Dragon Haste and 10 hits equals 13 strength, though, because that's what Xander would have to offer for her. So they're very much in competition in that way for build.
Yeah, I think Xander would be a better one because he also has Dragon Haste, and then his strength buff is not only a little bit stronger, it's going to be a lot more consistent because Frostbite equals user strength does have a cooldown.
Right.
Yeah.
The only other thing I can think with Halloween Odetta is her skill 1 does lower the enemy's defense by 5% with 40% base chance.
Yeah,
And
but-
with a 2,500 SP cost, you can get it off decently quick. But that's not enough to justify her high conditions.
Yeah, and it's only 40% chance, so...
Yeah, I think it is 40% per hit, though. It's 2 hits. So that kind of evens out to a coin flip, if I'm doing my math appropriately. I think it ends up being like 50-something% when you apply both chances at 40%. But yeah, it's not anything too crazy. So yeah, that kind of wraps it for her. I think looking at other off-meta picks would be also OG Celliera. I would see her definitely as B tier as well. I think she can clear comfortably with her. But and of course, being a blade co-ability, right? She has the strength. Then of course her chain being off element, or I'm not off element, but an elemental res being low HP. It's a bit lackluster. But yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, of course, she's a older water spiral at this point. And of course, welfare spiral. So you do see the power of a what sometimes a welfare spiral can bring is not too great. Laura, what do you think about Celliera?
I would honestly put her at B+, because what we're seeing on B-, which is off meta, are characters that they can do it comfortably, but for example, Odetta can't. I feel like they can't work at their maximum potential. Because, for example, Odetta can't because her buffs is proximity based, and her S1 defense debuff, it's only 40% chance, which is 64, I think, if he hits 2 times. But anyways, and Summer Estelle doesn't have the full stun res, so she kind of has to run a worm print for it, so she can't be at her maximum.
Right.
But Sally can do it at 7 MC. She can work at her full potential. It's just that her full potential is not that amazing. But I would put her at B+. She's okay. She's just okay. She can inflict frostbite. She can do decent damage. And yeah.
Oh, she can inflict frostbite.
Yeah.
Is that from her skill 1?
Yeah, her skill 1 when she's on that mode that she inflicts frostbite on herself.
Okay. She can.
When she's like that, she can inflict frostbite with her S1.
Okay. Okay.
And her S1 has okay damage too, so yeah, I think it's B+.
Yeah. Lace, what do you think about OG Celliera?
So I was personally really excited when they announced that she was getting a spiral because I myself main blades and I didn't have Valerio at the time. But looking at what she got in the spiral, it's really anti-cohesive to how she plays. So with her original skill 2, what it did was it increased the user strength by 25 seconds and allowed her first skill to inflict freeze for 10 seconds. But what they changed it to is basically until she uses her skill 2 again or uses a Force Strike, increases her strength by 25%. Her first skill inflicts Frostbite, and her Force Strike inflicts freeze. And then it also inflicts Frostbite on herself, dealing 1% of her max HP every 3-ish seconds. So basically, her spiral hurts her a little bit in this regard because it does a couple things. First of all, you can accidentally dispel your strength buff with a Force Strike. So Force Strike cancels it completely. Xander has this problem too. For one such as myself, I really like the Blade Force Strike for its mobility. I never took her past 66 nodes because at node 67 it upgrades her second skill from level 2 to level 3. So at 66 nodes she gets to keep her old skill, because the other thing to consider is when she uses it and inflicts Frostbite on herself, it makes that 25% strength exclusive from her dragon form, because that 25% strength always comes with Frostbite, which is an affliction which keeps you from dragoning.
Right.
So it does allow her, when upgraded for her first skill Ardent Stream, to inflict Frostbite. However, if you choose to leave her second skill at level 2, she can still inflict Freeze, which in the past has been a useful affliction for me because it's Freeze, it CCs things. Her Chainco ability is also a little bit anti-cohesive with her kit, because ideally you'd be using the Frostbite to get down to low HP. But it deals damage so slowly, it never takes you down that far. As well as her third ability got completely revamped by her spiral, going from HP equals strength to Last Offense. And Last Offense is typically a very bad ability because it only activates once, and it requires you to get to low HP. So on some units, it could be good, but kind of like timing a lot of damage for break, it's very, very hard to control when you actually proc Last Defense. And then her other abilities are just Potent Burn Res and Thamian's Bane.
Right.
So, all things considered, she's okay. I did take her to 66 nodes on level 100 and used her for a while. But I wouldn't recommend taking her past that unless you don't use Force Strikes at all, because beyond that, it kind of makes her harder to play. And again, it locks her strength buffs away from her dragon form.
Right. Unless, of course, you ran some kind of unoptimal worm print, right? Like Indelible Summer.
Yeah. So you can block the Frostbite with something like Indelible Summer, but yeah, then you're taking up a whole worm print slot for that. And the other thing is nothing has Frostbite res beyond that because the affliction is so new.
Right, yeah, no bosses inflicted to us yet at the moment. Yeah, we just don't have... it's basically a player-only affliction at this point. So, yeah, I think that definitely covers Celliera. If you guys have any other closing thoughts, we can definitely move on from her. It's possible that she also may have a minor rework in her spiral based on what they mentioned from Halloween Elisan. So
yeah,
that wording for that may or may not have been looking at older spirals, or it may be simply when they design future spirals.
Yeah.
So we'll have to
one
see.
thing to look at when they're doing spirals is, as game developers, it's very hard to nerf something once it's out. So with the gacha characters they release, they can't nerf them because people might have spent money to get the character and they can no longer clear something they've cleared before. However, one thing they can do is release something that's lackluster and improve it later on, because you can always move up, you just can't move back. So They did this. They're currently working on this with Halloween Elisan, and I suspect they might do it with Celliera and maybe Xander. Is change the way that buffs work from their Force Strike, so their Force Strike doesn't dispel things. Because again, if you change that one aspect of Xander's spiral, he gets a lot better by being able to hold on to Born Ruler.
Yeah, absolutely. That definitely would be a big help for him in particular. So, all right, yeah, that covers there. Let's see, we do have, I believe, one more spiral left to talk about in the list. Is that's correct? And I think that's Luther. No, actually, there's two.
Two more.
There is two.
Zardin and Orsem.
Yes. So let's talk about Luther first. So Luther, interesting. Where to place Luther? Personally, I haven't actually settled mentally of where I'm looking to place Luther. I don't see too much excitement or too much buzz on his kit, but I do see some value in what his kit brings. From his skill 2 being the strength down and the defense down. For now, I'm not sure. I want to say that B+ seems to be a comfortable spot to start him at, just because since he is dagger, he could sneak into rooms where people are fishing for Mitsuba.
Yeah.
I think that's fair, and I think it's probably on the top end of B+.
Yeah.
Laura, you're in agreement then with me with that placement for him?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Any thoughts then on his kit, his co-ability, how he plays with the update for the spiral?
Yeah. His Shenko ab is bad. It's just elemental res.
Mm-hmm.
Coab is the basic dagger, which is good. He has a pretty basic kit. It's he can inflict frostbite with skill 1 and 4 strike. His skill 2 inflicts strength and defense debuff, but the defense debuff it's not guaranteed. Flurry devastation, it's a pretty simple kit. It's just
Right.
damage. The damage is nothing special. His skill 1 inflicts frostbite, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he can inflict frostbite. He has okay damage on S1, and skill 2 is weak, but it has the utility, so it's okay. It's an okay character. Definitely not the best dagger option.
Right.
Since we have Mitsuba, we have Entiki, so okay character. It's just okay. Nothing to say.
Yeah. Lace, any thoughts then on Luther's spiral?
Yeah, so it's interesting to see Luther actually got the largest jump in damage modifiers on his skills.
Mm-hmm.
Units like Karina and Xander only got a very, very tiny adjustment on the modifier, and they got extra damage in the form of frostbite. Luther, however, got some much bigger numbers. So his first skill went from 4 hits of 186% to 4 hits of 253% in addition to frostbite. So looking at his kit, he also has some really low SP costs in both of his skills. His first one's only 2,300-ish, and his second one is 4,900. So he can get these skills off pretty quickly. Additionally, with his spiral, he has a 100% chance to reduce the enemy's strength by 5%, and a 50% chance to reduce the enemy's defense by 5%. And while that is a coin toss, it has a low SP cost, so you can get it off pretty quickly. As Laranoa said, his co-ability of crit rate is one of the 3 best basic ones in the game, as one of the offensive ones. Flurry Devastation just increases his crit rate, which is nice. And then his new, more customized ability, Passionate Dancer. So it replaces Striker Strength, but the big thing to note here is that it used to be Striker Strength 4%, but has been increased to Striker Strength 6%, which is much more in line with what Xander has. And every time he gets a crit rate with a cooldown, or every time he gets a critical hit with a cooldown of 10 seconds, it allows his 4-strike to inflict frostbite. So with his low SP costs and his crit equals 4-strike frostbite, he's actually probably going to get a pretty decent frostbite inflictor. Aside from that, his kit is very basic, and he's not going to be too amazing in the twins. His damage is okay. His third ability, it's basically only giving me the frostbite and not the striker strength. So he's all right. I think that the place you put him on the tier list is about accurate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could see an argument for maybe bottom of A, and then his missing something would be damage. But I think overall, being dagger, sharing the weapon type as Mitsuba means that it wouldn't be an issue for him to find a room. It's just more of a matter of people wanting to keep him around. But I think so. I mean, if I saw a fully geared Luther, I don't think I would have an issue with keeping him in the room. So, yeah. That being said, we definitely can look at Zardin then next. Unless, Lord, if you had any other closing thoughts you wanted on Luther.
Nah, he's just okay.
All right. Yeah. So Zardin, I'm going with bottom of A.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this guy in particular, having Frostbite on both his skills, it makes him kind of the ultimate Frostbite setter in a situation where you don't really need to set Frostbite with how much Frostbite we have. So, I don't know. I mean, like, he kind of gives me Vice vibes for water in that way. So,
a unit that he's actually closer to in comparison is Rodrigo, who is a 3-star Dark
point.
Sword who got the same treatment.
That is a good point, actually. Yeah, he is closer with Rodrigo. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much to say beyond. He is a 3-star. But in terms of budget picking and what he shows on DPS, it is pretty solid. He definitely got a massive spike in the DPS simulator. So,
one of the large things to consider with him, though, is his first ability, which is full HP equals strength.
Mm-hmm.
So with this spiral, he gets a 20% strength buff when his HP is full. But that requires full, like 1 HP less than full, and he's not going to be at full strength. Now, this is more easily worked around in the twins, where you're ideally not getting hit until later on in Phase 1 or Phase 2.
Mm-hmm.
So he can maintain full HP pretty well, and he has burn res, which means burn won't be taking him down to 1 HP. So that's pretty good as far as his kit goes. He also is a good Frostbite inflictor, but that means that a good amount of his DPS does rely on being able to inflict Frostbite. So if Frostbite caps, or the twins are capped temporarily, because I know that they will be available to be Frostbitten again if they give themselves the buff that is canceled by Frostbite. If he cannot inflict Frostbite, he's going to have some DPS fall off.
Right. Or if he somehow manages to make the public rooms overcap, and now Frostbite is no longer applicable, which I think in the cases of the way that the twins are designed, as long as the aura is available, right, he still will be able to inflict, as the Frostbite affliction will dispel that aura.
Yep.
So,
but as far as his damage go, because he has Frostbite on both of his skills instead of one, that doubles the chances of not being able to land Frostbite and losing out on that damage. And then as far as co-abilities and shared skills go, he's got Dragon Haste, and then he's got HP equals Strength, which it's only 3% strength, so it's not very strong. There are much better options. His shareable skill it only costs 3 points, and it has an SP cost of 6,300. So it's not the worst, but there are a lot of better options.
Right, absolutely, yeah. I think that pretty much covers him then. I mean, he's just all around decent. He's a budget builder. He's like a budget Frostbiter. I don't know. I think with his kit, I mean, I can't ask for too much. It's a 3-star spiral. They're pretty low investment, aside from Eldwater. So, it is what it is, Any other thoughts then on? I guess at this point, since we have the spirals taken care of, I'm kind of just going to drop the rest of the 3s into kind of a don't build this category.
I think Kuroda is the D.
You think? Yeah.
C.
C.
C. Yeah.
I could see a case for that being like if you don't have any other blades, and you wanted to do blade. Although the only other thing I could see with that is you could just use an off-element blade for generic strength.
But his damage is fine.
True. He does have a lot higher damage than the other 3s do. I think Rex is also in that position as well, but water is water's kind of a sad element in a way where those 3-star units actually have somewhat decent damage for the elements. So
yeah,
it is interesting to say. Speaking of above options not available, I know we'd mentioned this off recording, but of course Gauld will probably sit at that point in C as a Frostbiter. Now, I think that he definitely lowered his potential or setting because of how many Frostbiters we have now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of like his main draw. I really don't have too much to say about Gauld. He's in the same category as a character like
Valentine's Melody, I think.
Well,
I was gonna say more like Joachim or Joachim.
Joachim.
Yeah,
So
Joachim. Depending on the
Gauld-
translation, it could be either or, but yeah. Joachim and Fleur, both.
Yeah. So Gauld has a very similar kit to Fleur and Joachim, in that his first skill is on a skill shift, and his main idea behind him is being an inflictor of frostbite, like Fleur is for paralysis, like Joachim is for poison.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem with this is, just like the other ones, Fleur eventually got replaced with Mitsuhide, who did the same thing but better, and then Joachim got replaced with Hawk kind of just took his place, but like not even just Hawk, because Luis is also a bow that poisons, a wind bow that poisons,
Right.
and Eleonora is a wind bow that poisons.
Absolutely.
So there are 4 wind bows that have poison as like one of their forefront things, and one of them even has a chain co ability to boot. So Gauld is in a similar situation where he's just kind of a frostbite rotation unit, where he's got frostbite punisher, he's got some basic abilities there like HP equals strength. So yeah, his main thing was inflicting frostbite. He's got the frostbite equals user strength chain co ability. But because of the spirals especially, and with the other units we have, there's just a lot of other better units to use frostbite with.
Yeah. What I was thinking about comparing to Valentine's Melody is because like so at least in my country we say Joaquin, which is a Latin name, I think, a Latino name, I think. So anyways,
yeah.
Like Joaquin has some decent damage, which is not the case for Gauld. That's why I was comparing him to Valentine's Melody, because Valentine's Melody is just a burn enabler, nothing else basically.
Or poison enabler.
Yeah. Valentine's Melody? No, not Melody. Sorry, Valentine's Ezlith.
Oh yes, okay. Yeah, sure.
I got those mixed up.
Oh no, absolutely.
But yeah, I was thinking about Valentine's Melody because Valentine's Melody is just a burn enabler and nothing.
No.
Yeah.
Ezlith.
I see what you're saying. Like it, Valentine's Ezlith as a flame bow back in the day, before spirals and back when Elegant Escort was just getting kicked off, was a good burn enabler because she had burn on her skill 1. Yeah. And there were very few units that actually did that. Valentine's Orion also did it, but he was a smaller DPS. And then Valentine's Ezlith also had a defense debuff on her skill 2. So for Mercurial Gauntlet, she made a very good burn enabler. Yeah. So yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Gauld is, nothing really to like.
Yeah.
He's okay because he can inflict frostbite, but he doesn't have anything going on from him other than that.
Right. Chain co abilities.
If you don't have any other frostbite, or you don't want to 7MC the other characters, then you could that can frostbite. Then Gauld is an okay replacement, but overall, not a good character.
Yeah, the only thing I can see him having is the skill shift on his first skill increases the chance, increases the success rate of inflicting frostbite, but that can be countermanded by having so many characters throwing frostbite around that one of them is eventually going to land.
Yeah. Actually, now even looking at this, I had Rex up here. I put him onto above options not available, but Karina's a 4-star, so I'm gonna just put Rex at D. Like, there's just no reason.
There's still a chance you don't have Karina, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
like
it's just
Rex's only really redeemable quality is he has really high mods for a 3-star. So.
Right, and then it's at that point it's just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, you probably, if you don't have Karina, you probably have Pipple, and then it's like, if you don't have Pipple, you probably have Zardin, and at that point it's like, well, if you're gonna invest in a 3-star, you could just do Zardin. So I don't know.
I mean, above options not available is a very slim category because
Yeah.
of the sheer number of options above. One of which you're guaranteed to have, which is a lance like
Right.
Gauld.
Right.
So
Yeah. So that being said, though, we do actually have not that many left. So I think we'll pick out our last 5-star to talk about. Then we'll go over to the Ice Skater and the Christmas alts, or the Dragalia alts, if you will. With Laranoa, I believe her Chainco is Elemental, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
it's 10 hits equals flame res. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of yikes. I'm going to go ahead and say that she, looking at the other characters in water, bow is one of the elements that's actually not, or not elements, but weapon types that's not quite accurately represented here.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to stick her at the bottom of B-, in the fact that I consider the bow skill haste co-ability to be worthwhile. And if you really don't have a bow, namely the only one that we have in the meta is a limited collab unit,
Oh yeah.
then in terms of skill haste alone as a bow, I think that places her in a position of worth. The rest of her kit, right, her damage, unfortunate, she doesn't have any affliction or affliction punishing. So she's definitely in need of a spiral, which we might see for Hunt of Harmony coming to the compendium. But yeah, go ahead, Lace. What were you mentioning?
So, like, with skill haste as being good, because she has a chain co-ability of just flame res, you might as well just use a different element bow for your skill haste co-ability.
That is true.
And looking at all of the bows we have, there's only 4 water bows right now, being Wake, Dragalia, Nefaria, Laranoa, and Hunter Cerise. All of them, except Hunter Cerise, have some type of flame res as their chain co-ability. And Hunter Cerise just has hits equals energy, which is a really good one in certain circumstances. So, yeah. I don't think her co-ability without the chain co-ability alone, since it is just the basic bow one, is enough to salvage her kit.
Right.
I myself only picked up Laranoa a few days ago. But I also respect units that do not rely on afflictions to have their damage. But that being said, Laranoa does not have a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Right. Now that being said, though, and we'll pull up Dragalia, Nefaria as well. I believe she actually has a frostbite ability.
She does.
I want to say her Chainco ability is actually frostbite.
Dragalia Nefaria?
Yeah, related?
Yeah, it's frostbite equals flame res.
Okay, so I'll probably put that actually then under Laranoa, because of course the 10 hits is much easier to obtain than the frostbiting.
In that case, I would put on C. Sorry.
Yeah, actually above options not available most likely then. Damage output is to be lackluster. I know she does have a unique freezing mechanic, but I believe the affliction rate is 110. I think, maybe less. Is it on?
All right.
Yeah, no. Let's.
So when the combo count is 15 or higher, grants a 6-second buff that gives standard attacks a 10% chance of inflicting freeze. So 10% to inflict freeze is miserable. That means if you've inflicted freeze once, you're basically not gonna succeed. Or like,
yeah,
what a
so
sad
sad.
excuse of ability.
That being said, standard attacks go off really quickly. And it has a little more usage in things like defense battles where you have units everywhere, but it's not going to be useful in the twins at all.
Right. And then, I mean, Dragoniul's Xander is probably in a similar above options not available position for Wand Co-ab.
I would almost put him in don't build, but his co-ability is skill damage.
Yeah, what is his chain co-ability? Isn't his chain co-ability... I know his is probably frostbite as well.
Flame res.
Flame res?
Well, frostbite, flame res, yeah.
Yikes. So he's basically like budget Lily in terms of but he's a limited unit, so it's like weird.
Yeah.
So
the Dragalia 4-stars are definitely, or these Dragalia 4-stars are definitely held back by their abilities. So Dragalia Nefaria, her second skill basically allows her to use her Force Strike to grant a shield to nearby allies, which is first of all, it's a shield. Oh, and it increases energy by 1 stage. So first of all, it's a shield, regular shield, which don't do very much.
Right.
And second of all, that entire thing takes up an entire skill slot for 9,400 SP.
Yeah.
She has a skill damage passive, as her first ability, which is only going to be useful for shared skills, because it just changes the mods on a regular skill. It has no conditions. And then Flurry Freeze is of course not going to do anything. As far as Xander goes, one of the big things is he has Striker's Energy, which is one of the only 2 instances of it. The other one being Beautician Zardin. This seems to be a design parallel to his base form of Striker's Strength, more themed around Dragalia, but basically it increases energy by 2 stages for every 3 enemies defeated with a 4-strike, which is already kind of hard to do with a wand, and it's very hard to finish an enemy with a wand 4-strike. So, beyond that, he just has Skill Haste, which again is just going to be tied into his skills, and it's only going to be a little useful for shared skills, and it's only 5%.
Right, yeah, definitely. Now, I do want to mention on Dragon Nefaria, actually, my buddy Quite actually just got a 3-minute clear with her. So, in a public lobby. So
that being said, she was kind of in the meta a little bit on her release just because she was a burn res unit back in the day.
Right.
But burn res units are much more common now. So her usage has definitely seen a lot of fall off.
Yeah. I think, honestly, if either one of them get spirals for Christmas this year, maybe there's a chance that they can find their way back into, master difficulty when that comes around, or whatever the case may be, whatever the new hot water content is. But for now, this is where they will sit when we're talking about expert, Otaha and Ayaha. And I think the last unit we have is Orsem. And then we're done. So this guy, I'm going to go with off meta. I'm going to say bottom off meta for Orsem. I think he has good damage. I think he's an overall solid unit. He's just not what you want, right? I mean, if he had Frostbite potential, I could see him going into B+ or beyond, like where Luther is. Obviously, if you have a fully built Orsem, you could easily find your way into a lobby where someone's fishing for Mitsuba again. But I don't think his shared skill or chain co-ability, aside from basic dagger co-ability, which is great, I don't think his chain co-ability is anything special.
It's 10 hits equals flame res.
Right, so yeah, it's elemental again, which is against him in that way. So yeah, you guys have any thoughts on Orsem outside of kind of what I mentioned?
No.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, he's pretty generically built at the
I feel like every character from in A or below below A is pretty generic. It's just simple kits. So
yeah. Orsem does have a benefit from his simple kit though. It's very focused on criticals. So in addition to the critical rate co-ability, he also has Flurry Devastation, which increases his critical rate by another 10%, and HP 70% equals critical rate, which increases it by another 6%. With I believe with Dragalia, Jean d'Arc, and maybe a couple other things like Worm Prince, he can get over a 50% critical rate just on his own, which is very nice for him being like one of the earlier 4-stars. Aside from that, his damage mods are not amazing, but they got the job done. He was the first unit I cleared Hybern Hilda's trial with, and his shared skill is his first skill, which only has a shared SP cost of 4,600 and a skill share point of 4. But it's only going to be dealing 6 hits of 124%, so it's not astounding. Right.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of wraps up the tier. So here it is. This is the tier list then for Ayaha and Otaha's Wrath public lobbies as of today's date, which is July 5th from recording. So yeah, I just want to take the time to say thank you guys then for coming and making the tier list with me, Larart and Lace. I both appreciate it. Do you guys have any then closing statements that you'd like to address for the audience? Anything that you'd like to say, promotion of any accounts in particular? I know we kind of done this in the beginning, but just in case you guys stuck around, Lace, of course, has his own channel, Straitlace, which I'll have in the description, making his how to play videos, as well as he's done some guides in the past. A lot of great content on there. And then Ricardt, also have your Twitter, and then you said your Reddit user on there that you wanted as well, correct?
Yeah. So
Alright.
the only thing I want to mention
Sure.
about my Twitter is that I know my Twitter is not for everyone because I get real there. Like I talk about like some real problems in the world or anything. So yeah, just be aware of that about that if you decide to follow me. And my Reddit is a new account. I just made it. And yeah, Mitsuba is cute, and that's it.
Yes, Mitsuba. Bless. And then Lace, any other thoughts that you wanted to share out as well?
Yeah, I'm Straitlace. As was mentioned, I do have my own channel. In addition to the things I listed at the beginning of the video, I also do some game development on the side, and I also like to dive deep into the lore of Dragalia Lost and talk about that. I am also going to take this moment to plug your Discord because I like to hang out there and on other Discords and just hang out and chat with people.
Oh, yes, absolutely, yeah. Guys, if you'd like to hang out and chat with the both of us, Straitlace, myself, and as well as Ricardt, we do hang out in the Discord, so feel free to join us. Guys, it's player levels of all skill, so don't feel that you need to have a certain skill to be in there. If you have any questions, of course, it's a great place to go to get answers, and we'd just love to see you there. So, yeah. Thanks so much if you guys have made it.
But yeah.
So, But yeah, thanks so much, guys, if you've made it to this part in the video. We'll definitely be looking to get out the other elemental tier lists, as we get around to them, hopefully relatively soon. So I'd love to see you guys there. And if you haven't, please subscribe, like the video, share with your friends. And this way, we can all clear expert Ayaha and Otaha's wrath and get the weapons and have the fun that we want. So, thanks again, guys. All right.